My brother reluctantly took me in when I hit rock bottom, but his wife got me kicked out with lies. Years later, it was them standing on my porch asking to move in, and I just couldn't stop laughing. My older brother Tom, who's 9 years older than me, offered me a place to stay with him and his wife Karen. At the time, I was super grateful. I mean, who wouldn't be? Rent was ridiculously high, and I wasn't making enough to even consider living on my own. Tom had this nice house with a spare room, and he told me I could stay there as long as I needed until I got back on my feet. It felt like a lifeline. So I moved in with them. It wasn't a permanent solution, but I was trying to get myself together. You know, I didn't want to be a burden or anything. So I made sure I helped out around the house as much as possible. I did the cooking, cleaning, ran errands, all that stuff. I wasn't contributing much financially at first because I could barely afford my own groceries. But I pitched in whenever I could. Like if I had some extra cash, I'd buy groceries for the house or take care of the little things they needed. I thought it was going pretty well. At first, everything seemed fine. Karen was nice enough, and Tom and I have always been close, so it felt like I was in a safe place. Karen and I weren't best friends or anything, but I didn't think there was any problem between us. She never really said much, just kind of kept to herself, but I didn't take it personally. She was pregnant at the time, so I figured she just had her own stuff going on. But after about 6 months, things started getting weird. Like subtle stuff at first. Karen would make these little comments like, "Oh, when the baby comes, we're going to need a lot more space." Or, "I wonder if we should start thinking about how to turn the guest room into a nursery." You know, hints like that. I kind of got the vibe that she wanted me gone, but Tom kept reassuring me, saying, "Don't worry about it. You can stay as long as you need." I believed him because, well, he's my brother. Why would I think otherwise, right? Then the comments got less subtle. Karen started complaining more openly, saying things like, "It's going to be really hard having a newborn and a third person in the house." I wasn't trying to overstay my welcome, but at the same time, I didn't have anywhere else to go just yet. I had finally gotten a decent job by this point, but it wasn't like I had enough saved up to just pack my bags and leave right away. One day, things really started to shift. I remember it clear as day. Karen was sitting in the living room, and I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. Tom wasn't home yet, and Karen just starts talking to me out of nowhere. She tells me that she's uncomfortable with me living there, that it's affecting her peace of mind, and how she doesn't feel safe with some of the people I hang out with. I was like, "What people?" Because I barely went out, and when I did, it was usually with coworkers or old friends from college. Karen goes, "You know, I heard from Tom that some of your friends are involved in stuff like drugs, and I don't want that around my baby." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm not even close to anyone involved in that kind of crap, and I told her that, but she just shrugged like she knew something I didn't. I remember feeling like my stomach dropped because it was so out of left field, but I figured she was just stressed out with the pregnancy and all. I tried to brush it off, but things didn't stop there. After that conversation, Karen got colder. She'd give me these looks like I was in her way and barely spoke to me unless it was to drop more passive-aggressive hints about me leaving. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to believe that she'd straight up make things up about me. I mean, it's my brother's wife. What reason would she have to lie? Well, fast forward a couple of weeks and Tom starts acting distant too. It's not like him. So I asked him one night if everything was okay, and he just said, "Karen's been really stressed lately." He didn't bring up anything specific, but the vibe was off. Like, it felt like he was hiding something, but I didn't push him on it. So when Karen started acting a bit more distant, I didn't think much of it. I figured she just needed space or was going through her own stuff. But then she started making these comments, little things that in hindsight were probably meant to push me out without actually saying it outright. Like she'd mention how small the house felt all of a sudden, or how she needed more room for the baby's stuff. There was one time she even joked, "Maybe you'll be moving out before the baby comes, right?" and then laughed it off like it was no big deal. I remember laughing with her, but deep down I was like, wait, is she serious? It wasn't just the comments though. She started avoiding me more. If I was in the living room, she'd go upstairs or into another room. I tried to make conversation, ask her about the pregnancy if she needed anything, and she'd just brush me off. I was starting to feel like a ghost in the house. The weird part was that Tom never seemed to notice. He was so wrapped up in the baby stuff planning for the future that he didn't see what was happening right in front of him. And then there was the day Karen dropped the bomb about me supposedly flirting with her. I still can't wrap my head around it. It was a regular Tuesday. Tom was at work and I had the day off, so I figured I'd do some cleaning around the house, help out since I was staying there for free. Karen was sitting in the living room just scrolling through her phone, not really paying attention to anything. I was in the kitchen wiping down the counters when she suddenly called out, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I walked over thinking she needed help with something, but the look on her face was just weird. She didn't seem upset, but there was something off about her expression, like she was about to drop some serious news on me. So, she started fiddling with her phone. I've noticed that I don't know how to say this, but you've been acting kind of flirty with me. I literally froze. I didn't even know what to say at first because it was so out of left field. Like what? Me flirting with her, I laughed, thinking she was joking. Wait, what? Flirty with you? That's crazy, Karen. But she wasn't laughing. She just stared at me dead serious. No, I'm not kidding. Tom mentioned it to me too. He said he noticed it a while back. That's when the pit in my stomach dropped. Tom noticed it. What the hell was she even talking about? I had never, and I mean never thought of Karen that way. She was my brother's wife, for crying out loud. The idea of flirting with her was insane. Karen, I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to stay calm. I wouldn't. That's not. But she cut me off. Look, I'm just telling you what I feel. And honestly, it's making me uncomfortable. I don't think it's a good idea for you to be here anymore, especially with this baby coming. I felt like the room was spinning. I didn't know how to respond. How do you defend yourself against something that never even happened? I wanted to scream, but I just stood there completely blindsided. Tom said that I finally managed to ask. She nodded, but something about the way she did it felt off. Like she wasn't telling the whole story, but I didn't know what part of it was missing. The rest of that conversation is kind of a blur. Karen kept talking about how it's not personal and it's just for the safety of the family, but all I heard was that she wanted me gone. The whole flirting thing was complete BS, but I didn't know how to prove it. And the fact that she claimed Tom noticed it too, that hurt the most. My own brother thought I was hitting on his wife. It didn't make any sense. After that day, things got real tense in the house. Karen stopped talking to me altogether, and Tom acted like everything was fine. But I knew he knew something was up. I tried to talk to him about it one night, but he just brushed me off, saying Karen's been really stressed with the pregnancy. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. How could I not take it personally when his wife was accusing me of something so ridiculous? It got worse when Karen started telling Tom that I was involved with bad people. She told him that some of my friends were into drugs and that she didn't feel comfortable having me around the baby if I was bringing that kind of influence into their home. I barely even had friends over. I didn't have a social life because I was working and saving up to move out. But somehow, Karen had convinced Tom that I was hanging out with sketchy people. I don't know if Tom actually believed her or if he just didn't want to deal with the drama, but he started acting weird around me too. He'd come home from work and barely say a word to me like I wasn't even there. It was obvious Karen had gotten into his head, but every time I tried to bring it up, he'd shut me down. Just give Karen some space, he'd say. She's going through a lot right now. It didn't matter what I said. Karen had already made up her mind, and she was doing everything she could to push me out. And the worst part, she was using my brother to do it. It was like watching someone build a case against you for something you didn't even do, and you're just standing there powerless to stop it. By this point, I knew I couldn't stay there much longer. I was already looking for apartments, but with the rent prices, it wasn't easy. I didn't have a lot of options, and the last thing I wanted was to end up on the streets. I was trying so hard to be patient to not rock the boat, but deep down I knew it was only a matter of time before Karen made her final move. And when she did, I wasn't sure if Tom would have my back or if he'd side with her. So it finally happened. I knew it was coming, but when it did, it still hit me like a ton of bricks. Karen had been building up to this for weeks, and I guess I was just holding on to hope that Tom would step in and tell her to cut the crap. But yeah, that didn't happen. I had just gotten home from work, another long day at my new job, and all I wanted to do was relax for a bit. I walked in the door and everything seemed quiet. Too quiet, actually. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like something's off, but you can't put your finger on it right away. I headed towards my room, and that's when I saw it. All my stuff, my clothes, books, random belongings packed up in boxes and bags just sitting there in the hallway like trash waiting to be taken out. I stopped in my tracks. My heart started racing, and for a second I thought maybe there was some mistake. Maybe Karen was doing some weird cleaning thing, or I don't know. Maybe Tom was rearranging stuff. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. This wasn't some misunderstanding. I walked into the living room, and there was Tom sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. He didn't look at me. At first, didn't say anything either, just sat there in this awkward silence. Karen was nowhere to be found, of course, leaving him to do the dirty work. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel my anger bubbling up. Tom sighed, finally looking up at me with this guilty expression like he was a little kid who got caught doing something wrong. "Karen, she thinks it's time for you to move out," he said. His voice was so quiet, like he was ashamed of even saying it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? You're kicking me out just like that after everything? He didn't even try to defend himself. He just nodded, looking at the floor. It's not like that, he mumbled. It's just Karen's stressed with the pregnancy and she feels uncomfortable with you being here. You know, with everything going on. And everything going on. What did that even mean? I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't caused any problems. All I did was live there, help out, and keep to myself as much as possible. And now I was being thrown out because Karen felt uncomfortable. It was such BS. And Tom knew it too. But he wasn't going to stand up to her. I could see that clearly now. So that's it. You're just throwing me out on the street, I asked, my voice shaking with frustration. Over some lies Karen's been feeding you. I've done nothing but help around here, Tom. You know that. Tom stood up, running a hand through his hair, still avoiding eye contact. I'm not throwing you on the street, he said. I'll help you find a place. We can cover your security deposit, maybe even the first month's rent. It's not like we're abandoning you. Not abandoning me. It felt like the exact opposite. I wasn't asking for money. I was asking for some respect for my own brother to have my back instead of just rolling over because his wife wanted me gone. Karen said I was flirting with her Tom. She said I was hanging out with bad people. You really believe that I asked desperate for some kind of acknowledgement that he knew the truth. He didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. He either believed her or he was too scared to disagree with her. Either way, I was screwed. Look, he finally said, Karen's been really stressed, and with the baby coming, we just need a little more peace in the house. You've been great, and I appreciate everything you've done, but this is what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone? What about what's best for me? I wanted to scream, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. Karen had made up her mind, and Tom wasn't going to fight her on it. I was being pushed out, and there was nothing I could do to change it. I stood there for a second, trying to process it all. Part of me wanted to just storm out and never look back, but I had nowhere else to go. I didn't have savings for a new place yet, and I definitely didn't have any family I could turn to, at least not after this. Tom was the only one I thought I could count on, and now that bridge was burning right in front of me. When do I have to be out? I asked, my voice flattened, defeated. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Karen was hoping by the end of the week, he said, almost like he was ashamed to even say it. The end of the week. That was 4 days away. 4 freaking days to find somewhere to live, pack up my life, and figure out how to survive on my own. Right? I muttered, shaking my head. Thanks for the heads up, I guess. I turned around, heading back to the hallway where all my stuff was piled up. I could feel Tom watching me, but I didn't bother looking back at him. What was the point? He wasn't going to change his mind, and even if he wanted to, Karen wouldn't let him. I started picking up the boxes, dragging them back into my room, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I spent the next few days frantically searching for apartments, reaching out to anyone I could think of who might be able to let me crash for a while. It wasn't easy. Rent was high and I didn't have enough saved up yet to afford anything decent. I kept thinking maybe Tom would come to his senses. Maybe he'd talk to Karen and realize how unfair this whole situation was. But every time I saw them together, it was clear that wasn't happening. Karen avoided me completely, barely even acknowledging my existence. And Tom, he was acting like this was all perfectly normal. By the time Friday rolled around, I still hadn't found a place. I was packing the last of my things into boxes, trying not to cry when Tom knocked on the door. He stood there awkwardly for a minute, holding an envelope in his hand. Here, he said, handing it to me. It's for the security deposit and first month's rent. I hope it helps. I took the envelope without saying anything. I didn't want his money. What I wanted was for my brother to stand up for me, to tell Karen she was wrong and that I didn't deserve to be treated like this. But that wasn't going to happen, and I knew it. I left that weekend with my boxes and bags, feeling more alone than I ever had before. Tom barely even said goodbye. Karen didn't come out at all. I was just gone out of their lives like I never mattered in the first place. After getting kicked out of Tom's place, I spent the next few months pretty much in survival mode. I had nowhere to go at first, so I started crashing on friends' couches. You ever feel like you're imposing on people, even when they say it's okay? That's how I felt every single day. I was grateful for my friends letting me stay, but I knew deep down I couldn't keep doing it forever. I was just a guest, and they had their own lives to live. The hardest part was pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't want to keep bringing up what happened with Tom and Karen. I didn't want people to think I was bitter or stuck on it, but truthfully, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's not like I could just forget that my own brother tossed me out like I was nothing. But whenever someone asked how I was doing, I just smiled and said I'm figuring things out, like it wasn't killing me inside. Couchsurfing was rough. I couldn't settle anywhere, and I was constantly moving around with all my stuff in boxes and bags. There's something weird about living out of boxes for that long. You feel like you're always on the edge of being thrown out again. I'd pack everything up every time I left for work just in case. It's like I didn't trust that I'd be welcomed back. It messes with your head living like that. I'll admit things weren't great for a while. My job was okay, but it didn't pay enough for me to get my own place right away. I was trying to save, but you know how it goes. Every time I thought I was making progress, something would come up that wiped out my savings. Car trouble, bills, groceries. It felt like I was stuck, just treading water and trying not to drown. I thought about calling Tom a few times, asking him for help, but then I'd remember how things ended and how easily he let Karen push me out. I couldn't go back to him. I couldn't go back to them. The fact that he never even checked on me after I left, that said everything. I wasn't important to him anymore. I was just another problem Karen solved. It's funny though, you'd think getting thrown out by my own family would have broken me, but somehow it just made me more determined. I decided I wasn't going to rely on anyone else anymore. I was done with people letting me down, done with feeling like I owed anyone for a roof over my head. If I was going to get back on my feet, I was going to do it myself. So I started working harder, picking up extra hours at my job whenever I could. I cut back on everything. No new clothes, no going out, nothing that wasn't necessary. It was tough, but after a few months I had enough saved up to finally get my own place. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small one-room studio apartment on the edge of town, but it was mine. No more bouncing from place to place. No more relying on anyone else. I finally had a place to call my own, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I remember the first night in my new apartment. I didn't have much, just a mattress on the floor and a couple of boxes of stuff. But it felt like freedom. It was quiet. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't have to worry about being kicked out. I didn't have to walk on eggshells or tiptoe around anyone's moods. It was just me, and that was enough. Even though I was proud of myself for getting back on my feet, it didn't take away the hurt. I still thought about Tom and Karen all the time. I thought about how easily they tossed me out when they didn't need me anymore. How Karen's lies about me flirting with her and hanging out with sketchy people were enough to convince Tom to kick me out without even giving me a chance to defend myself. It still stung even if I was doing better. What made it worse was that no one in my family reached out. Not my parents, not my other siblings. It was like I didn't exist anymore. I guess Tom told everyone his side of the story, and I wasn't part of the picture they cared about. My parents always had this thing about keeping the peace, and I'm sure they thought it was easier to let Tom and Karen do whatever they wanted, rather than confront them about what happened. But it still hurt. You know, it felt like I'd been erased from their lives just like that. I focused on moving forward, though. I didn't have time to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had bills to pay, and the rent wasn't going to take care of itself, so I kept working, kept grinding, and slowly things started looking up. I got a promotion at work that helped with my finances. I started decorating my little apartment, making it feel like home. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I was proud of how far I'd come. One thing I learned during all this was that you can't depend on anyone else to fix your life. No one's coming to save you, and the people you think will always have your back might be the ones who push you down the hardest. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. You've got to look out for yourself, because when it all comes crashing down, the only person you can count on is you. Still, despite everything, there was a part of me that wished things had gone differently with Tom. I missed having a brother. I missed the way things used to be before Karen came into the picture and flipped everything upside down. But I knew I couldn't go back to that. I couldn't forget how they treated me, and I wasn't going to let them back into my life after what they did. They made their choice, and I had to live with mine. I hadn't spoken to Tom in almost a year by the time I felt like I was back on my feet. Every now and then I'd get a text from him or Karen asking how I was doing or checking in, but I never responded. I couldn't. Not after what they put me through. I figured they'd moved on too. They had their baby by now, and I'm sure their life was just fine without me in it. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. You don't just treat family like that and expect everything to be okay. I didn't know it at the time, but that whole situation was going to come back around eventually. And when it did, it was going to change everything. It had been about a year since I got my own place and went completely no contact with Tom and Karen. I had done everything I could to put them behind me, but it's not like you can just erase family from your mind. Every now and then, I'd think about reaching out, but then I'd remember how they tossed me out like I was nothing. The thought of Tom believing Karen's lies still made me sick. Then one day I got a call. I was sitting at my desk, half listening to a podcast when my phone started ringing. I glanced at the screen and to my surprise, it was Tom. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, so seeing his name pop up gave me a weird feeling. Part of me wanted to ignore it, let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up, so I did. "Hello," I answered, trying to sound neutral, not wanting to show any emotion. There was a pause on the other end, and then Tom's voice came through sounding different. He didn't sound like the confident, put-together older brother I used to know. He sounded desperate. "Hey," he said. "It's me." Yeah, I knew it was him. "What's up?" I replied, not wanting to make this easy for him. Tom hesitated, then sighed. "Look, I'm just going to cut to the chase. We need help. Karen and I, we're losing the house. The business went under, and we're getting evicted. We've got nowhere else to go." I could feel my heart rate pick up. I hadn't heard from Tom in over a year, and now he was calling because he needed something after everything they put me through. It was almost laughable. Part of me wanted to hang up right then and there, let them figure it out on their own. But the other part of me? Well, it was complicated. "So what do you want from me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. We were hoping he paused like he didn't even believe what he was about to say. "We were hoping you'd let us stay with you just for a few months until we get back on our feet." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind raced back to that day coming home to find all my stuff packed in the hallway. The way Tom just stood there while Karen lied about me flirting with her, and now they wanted to stay with me in my apartment. I let out a short laugh, more out of disbelief than anything. "You've got to be kidding me," I said. "I know how it sounds," Tom replied quickly, like he knew how ridiculous it was. "But we've got 2 kids now. We don't have anywhere else to go. Please." We wouldn't ask if it wasn't an emergency. An emergency. So now I was supposed to forget everything and help them because they were in trouble. Where was that energy when I needed a place to stay? When Karen was throwing me out over lies and Tom just stood by and let it happen? "Tom, I don't know what to tell you," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You kicked me out when I needed help. Remember that. You and Karen didn't care then. Why should I care now?" There was a long silence on the other end of the phone, and for a moment I thought he might hang up. But then he spoke again. And this time his voice was softer, like he was finally starting to get it. "I know," he said. "I know we screwed up. Karen, she was wrong. I was wrong for not standing up for you. I should have never let that happen. I should have had your back." Hearing him admit that gave me a weird mix of satisfaction and anger. It was the apology I had been waiting for, but it also felt too late, like it didn't matter anymore. The damage was already done. "What good was an apology now after all this time? I needed you, Tom," I said, my voice starting to crack. "I needed my brother, and you let her lie about me. You let her make me out to be some kind of freak, like I was flirting with her. You believed her over me." "I know," he whispered. "I'm sorry, I really am. But right now, we're desperate. We don't have anyone else to turn to. I'm asking you as your brother. Please, can we stay with you?" I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, trying to figure out what to say. A part of me wanted to tell him to shove it, to let him deal with the consequences of his choices. But another part of me, maybe the part that still cared about family despite everything, was torn. I'd been through hell when they kicked me out. But did that mean I had to kick them when they were down too? Was it my responsibility to be the bigger person here? "I need some time to think about it," I finally said, my voice tight. "I understand," Tom replied, sounding relieved that I hadn't slammed the door in his face just yet. "Take as much time as you need. I'm really sorry for everything, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." After we hung up, I just sat there for a while staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony of the situation. They threw me out without a second thought, and now they were begging me for a place to stay. It felt like some kind of twisted karmic joke. But the truth was, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be that person who holds grudges forever. But at the same time, I didn't want to be walked all over again. If I let them stay, would it just be another situation where they take advantage of me, or would this be the moment where we all finally grew up and moved past what happened? I thought about it for days. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Tom reminding me that they didn't have much time left before they had to move out of their house. My parents even got involved, sending me guilt-trippy messages about how family sticks together and how I should let bygones be bygones. But it wasn't that simple. Family sticking together only works when both sides actually give a damn about each other. And for a long time, it felt like I was the only one who cared. Update 1. I sat with the phone in my hand, staring at it like it was going to give me some kind of magical answer. After days of thinking about it, I had finally called Tom back. He didn't pick up right away, so I left him a message telling him I had made my decision and that he could call me back whenever he got the chance. Part of me felt like a huge weight had been lifted, but the other part was just anxious. Like whatever was going to happen next would either be a huge mess or something that changed everything between us for good. I wasn't sure which way it was going to go, but I had to stick with my choice. About an hour later, Tom called me back. His voice sounded tense, like he had been holding his breath since I left the message. "So what's your decision?" he asked, not even bothering with small talk. I took a deep breath. "Look, Tom, I thought about it a lot. I started trying to keep calm, even though I felt like my heart was going to pound out of my chest. And I can't let you and Karen stay with me." There was silence on the other end, like he wasn't sure he heard me right. "Wait, what? You're serious?" he finally said, sounding more shocked than angry. "After everything, you're really going to turn us away?" After everything, I shot back, feeling my voice get sharper. "You mean after you kicked me out of your house with no warning based on lies Karen made up?" "You threw me out, Tom. I had nowhere to go." "So yeah, I'm serious." I could hear him breathing on the other end, like he was trying to figure out how to respond without blowing up. "I told you I was sorry for that. We were under a lot of stress. Karen was pregnant and things were just complicated." Complicated, I repeated, my frustration boiling over. "You believed lies about me flirting with your wife and hanging out with drug dealers. You didn't even give me a chance to defend myself. And now, because things are bad for you, I'm supposed to just forget about all that. I'm not asking you to forget." Tom said, his voice more desperate now. "I'm asking you to help us. We've got kids now. This isn't just about me or Karen. We're your family." I felt a pang of guilt at that, but I wasn't going to back down. Not after everything I'd been through. "Family. You weren't thinking about family when you threw me out. You weren't thinking about family when you let Karen lie about me. I had to figure it out on my own, Tom. Now, it's your turn." There was another long pause. I could hear the frustration in his breathing again, but this time he didn't argue. He knew I was right. "Look," I continued, softening my tone just a little. "I'm not saying I don't care, but I can't let you stay with me. I've worked hard to rebuild my life and I'm finally in a good place. I can't let you and Karen come in and mess that up again. You understand that, right?" "Yeah," Tom muttered. "I get it." It wasn't the answer he wanted, but I wasn't going to budge. I wasn't about to let him guilt trip me into giving in. I'd come too far for that. "I'll help in other ways." I offered, feeling like I had to throw him something. "I'll help you find resources or places you can stay, but my home, that's off limits." There was a long silence on the other end, and for a second I thought Tom had hung up. But then he sighed long and deep, like he was finally accepting it. "Okay," he said, his voice quieter now. "I understand. I'm not happy about it, but I understand." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. It wasn't easy telling my own brother no, but I had to protect myself first. If I let him and Karen back into my life like that, I knew things would just end up the same as before, and I couldn't handle that again. "I really do hope things get better for you guys," I said, trying to end the conversation on a less tense note. "I'm sorry things are so hard right now." "Yeah, me too," Tom muttered. "Thanks for whatever help you can give." We said our awkward goodbyes, and that was that. I hung up the phone and just sat there for a minute, processing everything. I had said no. For once in my life, I had stood up for myself against my own family. And it felt weird. Part of me was proud, but another part was sad. I didn't like the idea of being estranged from Tom forever, but I knew this was the right thing to do. I had to draw the line somewhere. Over the next few days, I kept thinking about that conversation, replaying it in my head. I wasn't sure if Tom was mad at me or if he really understood where I was coming from, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let myself be guilted into something I wasn't comfortable with. My parents, of course, found out about the whole thing and tried to jump in with their family sticks-together routine. They couldn't believe I said no, even after I explained everything that had happened with Tom and Karen. It's like they just didn't want to see the bigger picture. "You should have helped them," my mom told me during one of our phone calls. "They're struggling and you've always been the one to help. This isn't like you." That last part stung a bit. Maybe it wasn't like me, but maybe that was the point. I'd always been the one to bend over backward for family no matter how they treated me. But that's exactly why I had to say no this time. I wasn't the same person I was before. I had learned to set boundaries, and this was one of them. I'm sorry, Mom, I said, trying to stay calm. But I've got to put myself first for once. Tom and Karen can figure it out. My parents didn't really get it, but that didn't surprise me. They weren't the ones who had been kicked out and left to fend for themselves. They weren't the ones who had to rebuild everything from scratch. I was, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel bad for protecting what I'd worked so hard to build. After that, things went quiet for a while. I didn't hear much from Tom or Karen, which was fine with me. They had their own problems to deal with, and I had mine. I helped them find a shelter that could take them in for a while, and that was the last I heard about it. No more desperate calls, no more guilt-tripping texts,